You have enough power to override those things?
Well, maybe you think about it like this. If PNCIMA is successful and it engages communities, it already is based on a memorandum of understanding between First Nations and the federal government. But if it's successful in developing a plan that First Nations and federal agencies sign off on, the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans signs off on, well then the likelihood of an oil company slipping a brown envelope to a minister and starting to drill in the Hecate Strait that's not consistent with the outcome. Well, the point is, the likelihood of them getting approval is quite a bit lower than it might be right now. So that's the whole objective, is to provide an integrated planning direction that people support. Agencies within government, First Nations, and users. That's what we're trying to do. Okay, go ahead.
Just going to say, I didn't hear forestry in there. Isn't that, shouldn't they be at the table too, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously forestry interests are part of the picture in terms of how coasts are used.
Right.
So one of the parts of the discussions that we can have tonight is who are all of the different user groups that need to be at the table and need to be participating in the planning process.
Same point was made last night in Port Hardy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's. One more.
Yeah, I just wanted Kevin's questions and concern about oil and gas. The higher level Ottawa planning, like for oil and gas, or even in Victoria, in terms of tenures, because we know it's really evident. There's a lot of drilling and testing going on in our backyard, and I know that we talk about it quite often, and the moratorium, it's not legislated, is it? So I think at some point it would be beneficial for us, a forum like this where we can actually sit amongst the stakeholders, because there's those agendas. I mean, Kevin's right. You take a look around what's going on with world events. I mean, Obama has made it clear that they want to boycott OPEC nations. What is that going to do? Pressure on the West Coast. So I mean, these are issues that we really need to flush out, find out, and try and get a gauge on where they're at, because those could potentially have big effects on our way of life. I know there's both sides to it, but we need to be at least having a say about what's going on.
How much power do you really have?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, I would say that we're looking at this process as an opportunity to bring, just as you're saying, all of those different interests to the table to find out where things are at and to have a discussion about where collectively we want things to go.
And so just before I go to this gentleman, let me just make the link between what you're talking about and what it is we'd like to talk to you about tonight after this conversation. That if what you're saying is that PNCIMA needs to address this question of the future of oil and gas, if that's what you're saying. Yeah, well, I know, but I'm just using this as an example. Then there's different ways that PNCIMA can organize and set up a working group or have a workshop on it. What is it that you would recommend that PNCIMA do about it? That's one of the questions we have to ask you tonight. So once we get through the general stuff here, we're going to get to that, and maybe that's one that you want to suggest, because that's the feedback the planning office is actually looking for. Last question to this gentleman.
Yeah, just the other day in the Globe and Mail, it was announced that the Ministry of the Environment is reducing the power of the Canadian Environmental Assessment Authority, specifically in oil and gas discussions. And concurrently, a process has been set up, a CEAA process, that is bringing some environmental organizations into a discussion about the feasibility, the viability of this Enbridge Gateway oil pipeline. And, I just was looking at your map before you turned it off there, but, if that momentum, that event comes through here, your picture there of that nice block of the BC coast has several hundred giant oil tankers going back and through, slicing it right in half. And to me, I mean, you want to talk about all these issues and everything for this Central Coast, And if you're saying that oil and gas companies and presumably tanker delivery companies and pipeline interests all have a legitimate root at this table, a place at this table, then you're not talking about yes or no pipelines, you're talking about mitigation. You know, well, let's have a little discussion here. Instead of 1,000-foot tankers, we'll have 500-foot tankers. I don't know. To me, it just seems amazing that there could be an overview project that's being designed for this area that has an acceptance of that particular project in it, or that you don't have the power, or is there a place in your discussion where a very equivocal statement can be made, where this group of people working together can actually say, yes, you know, this won't happen here, no pipeline or no tankers.
So I'll just say a few things on that. First of all, in the case of the Enbridge project, that's currently being assessed through an environmental assessment process. So that process is underway, and it will continue down its path. But the broader question about how do these things fit into the picture on the coast here, and do they? This is precisely part of the rationale or the reason that you might want to do an integrated management plan, is to have the discussion about what does the future for the coast look like, and what kinds of activities is there support for, and where are there parties who don't support certain kinds of activities, and how do we address those kinds of challenges? So by no means are we saying that we have already somehow accepted certain futures, whether they include oil and gas or pipelines and tanker traffic. We couldn't do that even if we wanted to. Those things are assessed and dealt with in processes like the environmental assessment process. But we can ask the question, how do they, if and how they fit into the picture for this area. But the other, I'll just say one last thing. I don't know that our approach is going to be to exclude those parties from this planning process. I think our approach is going to be an inclusive one in terms of having all those with an interest participate in the process if they see that it's in their interest.
Okay. One last question for you, and then we'll go
I
on.
think where questions seem to be basically coming from is, well, everybody has to be a footing within the plan, as opposed to like oil and gas, which has a big, fairly substantial lobby. Just want to make sure that all the different groups are fairly equal in terms of the discussions. One interest is going to end up outweighing everybody else.
So, I think that's a great question, and I think part of what we can talk about after this presentation is what does a process look like that creates a fair process? What does it look like to try and create equal footing, and how can we do that?
The other thing that you're about to ask, someone will ask it in a minute, but well, you'll see a diagram in the next presentation that, where do these recommendations go? To whom? Well, they go to the governance committees, so to the steering committee that Alex sits on with representatives of federal agencies. So if there is no agreement on the point that this gentleman has made about the future of oil and gas, there's a disagreement about it, and there probably is. I think we know that. We were in Kitimat a couple of days ago, and you can be certain that we heard a lot about it. So perhaps PNCIMA will develop better understanding of what the issues are, what the specific concerns are, what the information is, and that's what will go to the steering committee as feedback from the process. But you're obviously, questioning how much impact is PNCIMA going to have given the forces that are out there. You've all been around. You know how the world works in your own experience, and so